Anecdotally, about 95% of families looking for a new family car go for an SUV, which is a real shame because it means that brilliant sedans like this, the Hyundai Sonata N Line, get largely overlooked. This is Four Wheels in the Seat. I'm Alex Dalrymple and this is my channel where I review new cars every week. So if you're in the market for a new set of wheels and you don't know which way to turn, I might be able to help you out with a straightforward, jargon-free review. But you don't want to miss one, of course, so please hit the subscribe button down below, the notification bell, and if you enjoy the video, I'd really appreciate a like. The Sonata has had a midlife facelift, and it's not a minor one. It was pretty major surgery because pretty much everything inside and out, bar the doors possibly, and the engine is new, and they've done a really good job. The Sonata has picked up Hyundai's latest design language, which is sensuous sportiness, or sensuous sportiness. I'm not really sure which one it's supposed to be, but that means just like the Kona and the Staria, we get this full width LED light that puts on a bit of a light show for you when you approach the car. I really like this stuff. I think it looks awesome. It's a little bit retro futuristic, and I do wonder if it'll look a bit dated in a few years to come though. The main light clusters and the grille have moved down below the belt line. The profile of this car hasn't really changed with the new model. If you want to see my review of the previous Sonata, you can just click the link up there, but as you can see, it sits pretty low to the ground. In fact, maybe just a little bit too low. I'll tell you why in a minute. These wheels are 19 inches and I really like the design. I think they look really good. The back of the Sonata mimics the front, so we get another full width LED and a cool little light show when you hit the unlock button. And there's 4 exhausts down there, but to be honest, they look better than they sound. Under the powered boot lid is a 480 litre storage space. As I mentioned at the top, the engine in the Sonata N Line hasn't changed since the previous model, so we've got the same 2.5 litre 4-cylinder turbo engine that outputs 213 kilowatts and 422 newton meters of torque. It drives its power to the front wheels only via an 8-speed automatic transmission, and fuel economy comes in at 8.1 litres per 100 kilometres on a combined cycle. That's a little bit thirsty for a 4-cylinder engine, but this is a fairly quick and not exactly small car. In my fantasy world though, this car would have a straight 6 and be all-wheel drive, but for now we just have to dream. And now we come to my only real gripe with this car, the seating position. I'm 190 centimeters tall. I'm not exactly short, but I'm not a giant, and I don't fit in this car because my head is always touching the roof. The seat will not go any lower than it is, and I had the same problem with the previous Sonata as well. So if you're moderately tall, unfortunately this car might not be for you. Just a couple of centimeters lower and it will be fine. Hyundai, please fix this. The rest of the interior redesign is absolutely brilliant. In fact, I think this is probably one of the best cockpits you're going to find in a car outside of a BMW, with a great mix of soft touch materials. Everything feels really quality and well put together. It's a really nice design. The most significant difference, of course, is the addition of the 2 12-inch LED screens in front of the driver in one big curved display. And the center console screen now gets an updated version of the new Hyundai software. This is the first time I've encountered this actually. And while it works in a similar fashion, it just looks a lot cleaner and it's just easier to navigate. And for the first time now on a premium Hyundai system, we get wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Previously, due to some sort of silly legal dispute, only entry-level Hyundai's had the wireless system and the bigger cars missed out, but finally that has been rectified. Shortcut buttons across the middle here. Climate controls run on a separate screen, and that runs completely independent of the center console screen, which makes it much easier to make adjustments while you're driving. Moving down 2 USB-C ports, one of which has a switch on it which allows you to choose whether or not you want the phone to override any wireless phone connection that you might have going at the same time, which is a cool feature. Wireless phone charging and a little bit of extra storage space here in the lower console as well. You might notice that there's no gear shifter here in the middle, and that's because Hyundai have actually moved it over here to the steering column like they have on their electric cars. It's a little bit strange to get used to at first, and I find myself constantly having to look at whether or not I'm putting it in reverse or drive, but I imagine after you've been doing it for a while, it would become second nature. So we've got a lot of room down here for a couple of good sized cup holders, a little extra storage space there. Good size center console bin, which has got a nice soft lid and it's a nice armrest. The head-up display on the windscreen is nice and clear and actually works pretty well with polarized sunglasses. And then we've got the digital instrument cluster right in front of the driver, and again, this has been redesigned for this car and sort of made a lot cleaner and simpler, and there's a few different display modes, and it's a really pleasant screen to look at. The steering wheel is a new one for this car. The previous Sonata had a bit of a strange wheel, which I didn't like very much, but this one looks like it's actually come out of one of their EVs. It's got the 4 dots across the middle here, which is actually Morse code for the letter H, things that you can learn on Wikipedia. It's also got a little bit of a flat bottom here and an N badge. The seats, okay, yes, apart from being a little bit too high in the cabin for me, are actually pretty comfortable. They are suede and accented with Napa leather. Got the N badge on there with some red piping and red stitching. They're very comfortable, actually. They're heated and ventilated, lots of electric adjustment, and in terms of visibility, well, as you are sitting kind of high in the cabin, it's pretty good out the front, pretty good out the back, and pretty good in the blind spots too. The back seat of the Sonata really does prove that a sedan is still the perfect family car because there is a stack of room back here. I'm 190 centimeters tall, as I mentioned, and behind my own driving position, I've got loads of room, nowhere near the seat in front of me. 2 USB-C ports down there in the middle. We've got the panoramic sunroof. The doors here have window blinds in them. There's also another blind here that is raised from the console up on the roof up there. That's also lowers automatically when you put the car into reverse. We've got armrest here with cup holders. The outboard seats are heated and they are very comfortable. There's enough headroom. I'm again a little bit on the tall side for this car, hair just touching the roof, but that's okay. And it's nice and wide. You could fit 3 people back here in relative comfort. Definitely 3 kids wouldn't have an issue. So road trip with the family in this car, yeah, it'd be great. By the way, something I forgot to mention before, check out this car's key. It's like a giant Hyundai logo with the unlock, lock and boot release there. It just looks cool. It's very big. Now, if there's one thing that doesn't quite live up to this car's appearance, it's probably the engine note. And you notice that when you first switch the car on, it just doesn't sound as good as it looks. It just sounds a little bit like a small hatchback rather than a medium-sized sedan. But performance does make up for that because it's quite lively and this car really gets along very nicely considering that it's not small. I mean, it is a mid-sized sedan. But speaking of engine noise, you can actually add to that artificially because there's fake engine noise that comes through the speakers. I've turned it off because I just find it a little bit annoying. And speaking of artificial noises, the one thing this car does do an awful lot of, which I wish it wouldn't, is beep. Every time you enter a different speed zone, every time you exceed the speed limit, not that I would ever do that, it will beep at you quite incessantly. And that's linked to the speed sign recognition system, which is displayed on the driver's instrument cluster. Now you can disable the sounds. You've got to go into the menus and change it. It's a little bit of a pain to do, but unfortunately that also disables the speed sign recognition. And that's actually genuinely a very handy feature to have. You can't turn one off without the other, which is really annoying. And unfortunately, it also doesn't always get the speed zone right. So you can be driving along a freeway at 110, and if there's an exit where the speed limit is 60 and the camera detects that, it will immediately start beeping at you saying that you're going 50 kilometers an hour over the speed limit when you're not. Even though this car's performance is really good, especially for a 4-cylinder, I wish it had 6 cylinders and was all-wheel drive, because I think that would be a real performance machine and would give the Hyundai Kia group something to replace the Kia Stinger with. And look, while I say a bigger, faster engine would be nice, to be honest, daily driving around town, you really don't need it. There is more than enough power. Safety gear includes adaptive cruise control, blind spot monitoring, blind spot cameras in the wing mirrors, which you can see on the instrument cluster when you turn an indicator on, rear cross traffic alert, and top-down 360-degree camera. Oh, I'm now getting a low tyre pressure warning from the back left tyre. More beeping. Yes, just keep beeping. It's not school zone o'clock yet. I can do 50 here. More beeping to tell me that it's now changed to 60. It never ends. I just had a quick little look back at my review of this car, or the previous version of it anyway, from 2 years ago, and the difference in the interior fit out between that car and this one is really huge. The cars look very, very different on the inside especially. So we've got now a lot more soft touch materials here, whereas I was complaining that the previous model had a lot of harsh, scratchy plastics. And there is still a bit of hard plastic in here, but most of it is sort of below the waistline where you don't often see it or touch it. So they have really sort of lifted the cabin in here and made it feel a bit more premium. I also said in my last review that the Sonata felt quite firm in its suspension settings. I'm not really noticing that here. It's not soft, it feels just right actually. It feels just where it should be. This car has inherited its good looks from the previous model and turns a few heads. I mean, you don't see that many of them on the road, so when they do go past, you do notice it, and it's getting a few sideways glances. And dynamically, it's really good too. I don't want to say it drives like a small car. I mean, it does feel its size, but it is still really quite dynamic, and the steering is very light and responsive, but not too light. There is still a good amount of feel through the wheel. The gear shifter on the steering column does take a bit of getting used to, and you've just really got to take an extra moment to make sure you're putting it in reverse and not drive accidentally. As someone whose dad had an XD Ford Fairmont gear in the 1980s when I was growing up, sedans have a very special place in my heart, and the Sonata would have to be about the best non-luxury sedan you can get right now. And just look at it. I mean, it's certainly a lot more interesting than a Toyota Camry or a Skoda Octavia, but it's just that bloody high seating position that makes it a non-starter for me. But if you're just a little bit shorter, I'd say go for it.